some of the traits that are getting in the way. Traits of ASD Level 1. Formerly called Asperger syndrome. Some people call it high functioning autism. I'm just going to say ASD. And as you know, we have 3 levels. I would imagine your husband would be, or your partner would be Level 1, which is the high functioning. Although I do have some people that come in and he's somewhere between Level 1 and 2. But that's a different ball game and probably would need a whole nother approach. At any rate, basically, and I'll try to keep this short. As many of you know, with ASD, there's this thing called mind blindness. Hi, Barbara. And with mind blindness, I'm going to pretend like I have ASD and I'm the husband. So if I have mind blindness, I have a hard time predicting what you might be thinking. I really am almost in a constant state of wondering and a constant state of confusion about what's going on in your mind and why you say the things you do, why you behave the way you do, why you have certain opinions and certain perspectives on things. It's always a mystery to me, and I'm often disagreeing with your opinions and your take on things. And some people will just call that lack of empathy, which essentially, if you wanted to oversimplify it, that's what it is. The guy with ASD, it's not that he doesn't have empathy. He does. He just doesn't display empathy. So I like to say he doesn't have displayed empathy, but he has empathy. In fact, in many cases, this may be a kind of a shock to you ladies. Sometimes he has so much empathy that he found out at a very early age that it was too anxiety producing to feel empathy. So you may even doubt this, but a lot of these guys were at one point an empath. And it was so painful to feel other people's pain that they just basically stopped. They forced themselves to stop feeling. I call it the paramedic effect, where if you're a paramedic or you know a paramedic, you're dealing with blood, gore, death, destruction all day long, and you can't be an empath and be a paramedic at the same time. You can't be in the military and in times of war and be an empath at the same time. At some point you have to kind of turn it off or shut it down. So there's the mind blindness piece. Also, since I'm never really sure what other people are thinking and what their motives are, I'm constantly in a state of guesswork. Which is very anxiety producing. So since I'm always having to guess what other people are thinking and why they're saying the things that they are, I'm always in a certain element of anxiety, pretty much chronically, low-grade chronic anxiety, ongoing. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here, one of my ways to deal with anxiety is to some form of a shutdown, some form of a meltdown, or some form of false agreement, where you're talking to me and I go, yeah, right. Yeah, I hear you, honey. Yeah, sure, whatever you want. Yeah. Just to hurry up and get the conversation over with. And you think I heard you, and you think I understand you, but I didn't. And then there's other times where you might be talking to me and I'm in the room and you think I might be listening, but your words don't go in one ear and out the other. They didn't even go in the one ear because I was off in my mind. I was off over here in some fantasy land and wasn't even present. So that's the mind blindness piece. Also with the disorder comes alexithymia. So now instead of mind blind, I'm emotions blind. I don't know how I feel much. If you ask me how I feel, I'll say, oh, I'm fine. And you'll go, that's not an emotion. Oh, okay, well, I'm okay. No, that's not an emotion. So I don't know what I'm feeling, and I certainly don't know what you're feeling. So now I have mind blindness and emotions blindness. So those, not that those are just the only traits, but those are the 2 main traits that cause, we'll just say, for example, communication breakdown between the 2 of you. Another big one is executive function deficits, and we'll get into that, if not today, probably next time. But that opens up a whole other can of worms that's going to need a whole lot of time to talk about. So you're running into a guy who is mind blind, emotions blind, and has some executive functions deficits. And so that's why instead of getting somebody who is going to be a team player, you're getting somebody who seems almost like he doesn't even care about the relationship. So they purposely turn their emotions way down. And it comes from many years of, quite honestly, emotions getting in the way of their logical thinking. It's not that they don't have any room for emotions, it's just that in their mind they don't see any need for emotions. And the ASD brain is low in social and emotional intelligence. That's the whole reason they call it a developmental disorder. He's developmentally, in the social emotional sense, stunted. I often hear from the ladies, they say, well, emotionally, he's more like a 14-year-old. Some people put him more like an 8-year-old. So we have the low social emotional intelligence, but we have another issue. We have high logic, too much logic. And some people would say, well, how can you have too much logic? It's like, how can you have too many vegetables? Well, when you have too much logic, you get stuck on a thought. You only see your viewpoint. You think that your viewpoint is the only viewpoint. You get hooked on a particular detail, and it's hard to progress on to see the big picture. It's hard to see the big picture because you get hyper-focused on one detail. If you're, for example, if you're starting a project, you get stuck on step one, and it's hard for that individual to move on to step 2, 3, and 4. So, two problems there: low social emotional intelligence, but an overthinking brain or an overly logical brain. And they are very task-oriented. Since they're not very socially oriented or in tune with their emotions, they're more in touch with getting tasks completed, logic, facts, figures, and so on. So honestly, they don't even see any need for emotions. And when you talk about your emotions, A, they don't know quite what they are, and B, it's way out of their realm of interests. So that's why you feel like when you talk to him about your feelings, just like you get nowhere. Their motto might be remove the emotions and accomplish the task more efficiently. So given those traits that I just mentioned, now we have some specific problems that manifest themselves. They have difficulty understanding and predicting the consequences of their behavior. They view you as irrational and illogical. They view talking about relationship problems as intolerable because it's heavy in the social emotional realm, and they're weak in that area. So that's why even talking about a difficult problem gets you. Some of the ladies in here, you might even say to me, "We don't even talk about anything anymore. I can't talk to him about anything because it just ends in a disaster." So some of you in here may have stopped trying to talk because he has viewed talking about relationship issues as totally intolerable. They have a very difficult time hearing negative emotions expressed by you because whenever they hear a difference of opinion or an attempt to explain a different perspective about a situation, they simply view that as criticism and that you're trying to control them, and that it's just another argument. And another thing that they do, since they have the mind blindness and alexithymia thing, with that, my world is so unpredictable. So what do I do in that situation? I try to make my world as predictable as possible. How do I do that? I have a lot of routine and structure. Routines are paramount. They find great comfort in routine, and they will get very stressed if you try to surprise them with hey, we need to have a talk about something. Or if he's in the middle of something, you try to pull him away and get him to do something else, you've probably met a lot of resistance there. So in their mind, it's tasks first, relationships second, but it's slightly worse than that. The relationships have to, in many ways, be on their terms. So that was a very generalized and honestly kind of a stereotypical speech, but it gets you in the ballpark.
Hi, sorry, I got disconnected.
Alexandria, would you do me a favor? Would you shut your video off? Are you walking? Thank you. I just see this movement on the screen and it's distracting me. Sorry. So, having said all of that, by the way, whoever started this recording, thank you. because I forgot to do it. So thank you for doing that. We can further discuss that, what I just talked about, and I will summarize for you right now. The traits that get in the way of the relationship are mind blindness, alexithymia, executive function deficits, high anxiety, low in social and emotional intelligence, but super high, too high in logic. That's what you're dealing with there. Those 6 things make up 90% of the problem. So you to dive into the traits that get in the way, or we can change topics entirely or some combination thereof. But at this point, instead of me just lecturing, because I don't want to do a cookie cutter approach here, I would like to get some specific examples from anybody in here who feels free to describe what's going on. And we'll see if, and pretty much when one lady says, well, here's what I'm dealing with, 80% of the time, the other ladies pretty much can identify because they're going through something similar. So does anybody have a question or a follow-up comment on what I just said? Or I don't have a particular agenda or a direction that I need this to go.
Hello, Mark. If I can, I would, hello to everybody. Hi.
Hi.
I would like to say 2 things. One is that I noticed that with my partner, Martin, we were reading a book titled 8 Dates. And the first chapter, there was a list of emotions. And when he saw the list of emotions, he could talk about that. Instead, while talking from scratch, it was almost impossible. And I was really impressed by this because I said, oh, this could be a trick, maybe, to help the connection. And the second is exactly this, that you called the functional, sorry, I don't remember. Functional.
Executive function deficits?
Exactly, because it's very difficult and sometimes very frustrating for me that we plan something, or zum Beispiel, we have to move house sooner or later. And yeah, we do this and that. And then if I don't push, if I don't remind, it's always I have to push, I feel. And now he stopped to blame me that I push because he realizes he has a difficulty about it, but I also don't like. So I would wonder, is there a suggestion about it from you, how to deal with it?
Okay, well, the first one was, because I think I heard 2 things in there. The first one was when there was a list of emotions, you got the indication that he kind of knew what was going on, right?
Sorry?
What did you say about the list of emotions that you went through?
We started reading this book, and at the beginning there was try to ask each other, how do you feel? You could feel this, and there was a list of 30 things, 30 emotions. Mm-hmm. And I seen it's so easier. Actually, it's easier also for me. I think for everybody, probably, than starting from 0. Mm-hmm. And from this list was easier. And I thought maybe it could be something that it could help.
Yeah, and so by the way, this backdrop that I gave you a little bit ago, that doesn't mean that there's no help available. Social skills can be taught, emotional competencies can be cultivated, so it's not like just a death sentence. But social skills do have to be taught, and they have to have a frame of reference. So I think Georgia mentions something to the effect that I think she used it wasn't. Sometimes he's not spontaneous or do it on the fly, because if you ask him how he feels, he doesn't know how he feels because he doesn't have anything to relate it to. But if you give him a frame of reference, and that would, I'll give you an example of a frame of reference, would be, an analogy, for example. I'm just going to make up an example. Let's say that your husband didn't understand this business of when he comes home after a long day of work to just come home and bypass you and go straight to his man cave is one of those hidden rules that's been violated. The hidden rule is when you get home from a long day of work, you at least peek in and see what your wife's doing and say, "Hi, honey, I'm home. How are you?" Something like that. But he just comes in, doesn't even look at you, talk to you, goes straight to the computer room or whatever. So when you're trying to describe to him how that kind of hurts, to a frame of reference would be an analogy. So, Martin, when you come, if you come home to let's say that you have a dog and he loves you and he looks forward to you and he's been home by himself all day and he hears the car door, he hears you rustling the keys in the doorknob and he's all excited and wagging his tail and he just can't wait to see you and jump on you and sniff you because he's so glad to see you. Well, I know I'm not a dog, but I'm kind of like that. It's like I haven't seen you all day. I'm kind of glad to see you home. And when you just bypass me and go straight to your computer room like I don't even exist, it kind of hurts. So I'm kind of like the loving golden retriever that's so excited that you came home. Okay, so that's an analogy that would be a frame of reference for him that he might understand. With respect to the chores business, I'm going to ask you a question, Georgia. Are you saying that you ask him to do a chore or a particular task, he agrees to do that, but there's no follow through? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry.
Huh?
My microphone. Not really. It's more about planning and having to do steps like changing the house or we have to reorganize a room. It seems like things are just, I don't know, disappear. I cannot say. And I still have to push or remind every time the steps to do. I cannot express better than this.
Okay, well, you had used the term executive function a little bit ago, and I think you've tapped into it because, and there's really two things. Another thing that comes with the disorder in almost every case is obsessive compulsive tendencies and sometimes full-blown obsessive compulsive disorder, which includes perfectionism. And so there's two things that go on when that could be going on, Georgia. One thing is he's perfectionistic, and if he doesn't have all his ducks in a row and have everything perfect before he starts, he's disinclined to initiate the thing. And in fact, initiating is one of the executive function deficits that we'll talk about. So with perfectionism, I have to wait for the perfect time and the perfect place and have everything ready to go. And then and only then will I start this project because I want it to be perfect. So what ends up happening there is they procrastinate, or they just end up never doing it at all. So that's one issue. The second issue would be could be some of the executive function stuff where he simply doesn't know where to start. And even if he was given a significant clue of where to start and when, he wouldn't know what to do next. So sometimes there's no follow through for that reason as well. Katrina, you got your hand up.
And now I have to remember where to click. There we go.
You hit it.
All right, good. So, I mean, I just want to say I was in the last 4 weeks, and I went to say like a lot of the nuggets and things were super helpful. My husband and I are kind of navigating a crisis situation that has emerged through. He lost his job 2 years ago, toxic environment. He was there for the company 15 years, and then I've been supporting the family since then with my consulting business. And there was an issue of broken trust on his side where we had an agreement about me not drinking at company events, but I was with a friend, colleague thing, and there was some issues around that. And we worked through those, but then I ended up finding out that he was like emotionally entangled with a woman on Twitter, like messaging multiple times a day, all kinds of stuff over the past few months.
Let me stop you there because you're on the second topic now.
Yeah.
But don't forget where you left off.
Yeah.
So, as you may or may not know, it gets back to this business of unpredictability in my world.
Right.
So not only does unpredictability raise my anxiety, it also causes me to come up with a lot of anxiety reduction techniques. And we talked, one of those is living in fantasy land a lot, but another one is rules.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have routine and structure. How can I do that? I have to have a lot of rules.
Mm-hmm.
Rules how to do this, rules how to do that, rules what you can and can't do. When you violate a rule, buddy,
Mm-hmm.
you are in effing trouble big league because you
Right.
just you may as well have just told him that his mother died or something. It's that the rules are so important
Right.
because it provides that routine and structure that they need.
Right.
Now on to the next.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I said, I came to realize the gravity of my error, right? And how much that disrupted him. But then, as we're going through all this, I've been putting in 50, 60-hour weeks, putting in a lot of, busy, very distracted, focused on the business type of thing. And it ended up, he and this woman it was all public, but he was like, they were messaging multiple times a day. It was all this, stuff. And I started to get that feeling of like, something's off here. There's a lot of things that didn't add up. And obviously, I just was like, this is inappropriate, right? Like, she's going through a divorce. There's way too much, constant give and take here. They're way too involved in her life. And we're not really talking that much. I'm super busy. So it took him a few months after I brought it up multiple times, my discomfort with it, talking about how I wouldn't think he'd be comfortable if that was going on my side type of stuff. He finally, like he was saying, I'm not doing anything wrong. He was kind of mean about it, and finally in the past week and a half, he finally came to realize, okay, yeah, it was inappropriate. He didn't realize he had broken one of his own rules, right, that he had from
What was that? What was that rule?
He had a rule when he was professionally working about maintaining professional distance, not being too emotionally connected with other women, even in the workplace. And he realized that he had violated that because his parents divorced in his teens, and there's a lot of weirdness there. So he finally realized, thank you for the analogy, by the way, because I basically explained to it in video game terms. Like I said, you can't, from Fallout, I was like, you can't put a nuke in my heart about the fact that you basically were emotionally, involved with another woman for months and like blow up the love and trust and expect to rebuild Appalachia in a day or a couple good days. Like, this is like long-term rebuilding that we are going to have to do here. And he finally admitted and understood the wrong. And I mean, it got really bad for a little bit. But so my questions are twofold, because he's committed to redoing this. He's joining therapy. We're all the things.
Okay, before you ask the question though, just bear in mind that most men, and actually women too, probably more so with women on the autism spectrum, they do tend to be very naive. And so what I run into a lot is, and I'm not saying that your husband did this, I'm just saying what I run into a lot is, for whatever reason, he will befriend some lady and she will get the indication without him even coming right out and saying anything directly that he's kind of available.
Right.
Well, I see this a lot when he has no clue what the hell's going on there. So he's a little naive. Also, in most cases, I think it's safe to say most, men on the spectrum are a little more comfortable with females than they are males, because females, neurotypical females, are a little more forgiving of some of their quirkiness. And also, they are relatively blind to the hidden social rules. And he realized after the fact that he broke his own rules. So there's this hidden rule that you and I know about, and that is, you don't have any kind of relationship with a female outside of the marriage that is even remotely suggestive of emotional cheating. You've never read that in a book, but it's out there.
Yeah.
And so when they're blind to these hidden rules, which they are so blind to most hidden rules of society, then they just go along and they have no clue that they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah. I would say I really, as I learned more about alexithymia, I really started to see more of this as like, it was almost like motivated by his wounded self-esteem and the broken trust healing issue. And he didn't realize how in deep he was with this woman. He did not have any clue. Whereas I could feel him thinking about her. I could catch, I could see it before he could see it. And that's one of those things we've dealt with in our marriage. I'm like, you're upset about something. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, yeah, you are. And it takes him a couple of days. Oh yeah, I'm upset about X, Y, Z. So I was more aware of the depth of what was going on than he was, and how she was getting super attached to him. And, because the one thing that he did was that it was all public, right? It was always a public chat on Twitter. He has a no DM rule. But that didn't matter because it was like a constant, chatter thing. So but the two things, like I said, he's made a commitment. He's joining therapy. I mean, he became suicidal before he realized, and accepted, like just how serious this was, of a major breach of trust for us. And so finally I said, okay, we got to deal with this. This is full stop, type of situation. And so he's joined therapy, and we're committed to working through things. And he has come to recognize just that this is a long process. Like, my emotional wound is not going to heal overnight, and we are going to have to work through this. I need to know, I just want some things to know, like how I can work on my own healing, as far as like things I can take to steps to recover, it's ups and downs type of stuff. I've never stayed in a relationship after a painful betrayal before, but we're 18 years in. So, I figure 4 kids, and then that's the other thing is, like, for the thing that I have that's a big fear, that's a second thing is, this came about when I wasn't paying attention, and because he was putting his communication attention elsewhere and felt ignored. And even if it wasn't intentional and all that stuff, can he learn through the therapy that, like, he can be more aware of his own alexithymia? Because he can become maybe a little more aware of, like, if I'm thinking, like, another 10 years down the road, if all of a sudden I'm helping with grandkids, or I'm really super busy and he feels ignored, how do we make sure that he doesn't end up having negative behaviors reemerge again, type of situation where he does the same thing?
Mm-hmm. So, by the way, and this relates to something you said previously, when sometimes you will notice that, I'm just going to use an example where let's say you guys get in a fight,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty brutal, and a lot of hateful stuff was said, and then 5 minutes later he's fine, and he's just back to business as usual. He's wondering why you're still upset, and you're upset for like the next 2 or 3 days, sometimes an entire week or two,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going, "What's wrong?" "Well, you remember that thing that happened 2 weeks ago?" "No." So, and we're back to the mind blindness and alexithymia piece again, where when you, Katrina, when you've had an argument,
Mm-hmm.
it impacts you emotionally
Mm-hmm.
really hard. It doesn't do the same thing to him. So, as a result, there's no emotional memory tied to the event. It's just a blur, and a lot of times he's not even fully present during the talk or the argument. So he's missing a ton of data. He's missing some of the things that he said and that you said.
Mm-hmm.
He's missing a lot of your motivation for sending the message. And there's no emotional component for him in that moment. So there's no emotional memory attached to that incident in question. So that's why he has a hard time recalling what the argument was even about. And that's also why he can recover so quickly. I hear this a lot. He said, well, he had his huge meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yelled, screamed, threw stuff. You'd think it, and punched a hole in the drywall. And like 10 minutes later, he acted like nothing was wrong. That's because emotionally he wasn't there. There was no impact on him with that behavior. He was under a lot of anxiety. Anxiety is energy. Let me repeat that. Anxiety is energy in the form of adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, cortisone, and all these fight or flight chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a teapot that had so much steam built up that it exploded. And the teapot doesn't take 20 minutes to explode. It explodes in 1 second and it's over. It's the same thing with him. He explodes, he's done, he's fine. I got rid of all my negative anxiety energy. I'm ready to go back to life as usual. And I don't understand why you don't recover so quickly. So that might be something that you could, I'll go back to the analogy thing again that I spoke of earlier, that might help him understand why it's taking you, in his mind, so damn long to get over this thing.
Right.
So with respect to healing, what I would say is trust but verify that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say, as ironic as it sounds, if you can do this and pull it off at some level, maybe give him a little bit of an indication that you are
Mm-hmm.
keeping an eye on things.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
don't have to be, you want to be subtle about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get the indication that he is doing what he's supposed to be doing, and it doesn't reveal anything about your snooping, and yes, you should be doing some snooping.
Mm-hmm.
It would be good to acknowledge that, give him some praise. What he needs more than anything from you while you're healing is some appreciation expressed that he's actually working on the problem. So some well-placed appreciation from you every once in a while.
Mhm.
I'm not saying bring out the parade and the balloons. It's just a kind word of, hey, I noticed that such and such, and I just want to let you know that's I really appreciate that, or that's a very loving thing to do, or that really means so much to me. Just little things like that, Katrina, will be very positively reinforcing for him to want to continue to do the right thing.
Okay.
And then the other thing that he could do with respect to how can I catch when I miss?
Mhm.
There's a baseball coming right at me, and it whizzed right by my head, and I didn't even see it.
Right.
And my wife pointed out to me that a baseball just about hit me in the temple, and where? I don't see it. So if he'd be willing to do this, and you would have to kind of be the compassionate coach to help him, he could journal those missed moments.
Okay.
Where to you it would be a blatantly obvious thing, and to him it just went, and so, time to bring out that journal.
Okay.
And we write down what the incident was in question, and how you responded, which was, I don't want to use the term inappropriate, would you say how you responded differently?
Right.
And perhaps this would be a better way to respond next time.
Got it.
So some journaling, if he'd be willing to do some journal, I don't know what we want to call it, missed moment journal, a missed moment journal. Yeah, as opposed to like a trigger journal where he's journaling about sensory sensitivities or what some people say or do that triggers his anger. That's a different story.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And I feel like he would be open to that because he has relied on me over the years to help him know, was this appropriate? Is this okay? That we've just been that before we even had a clue that this is what we were dealing with. And I just think he is very open, and I'm definitely in a trust but verify spot. So, and he's aware of that. And I, but he's very much like every time there's been an issue, he's like, I'm totally committed to being open and, on it. He's like, I'm here, I'm showing up, and he's going to be in the men's group, and we're going to do couples therapy next week too. So I said, these are crucial for me. So, but thank you. We'll definitely talk about that. So
in summary, the analogy about that we talked about, understand that he's going to be confused as to why it's taking you so long to recover.
Right.
And then if he would want to do a missed moment journal, I'm just making that up.
Yeah.
So you would say, let's journal about that because you missed something there. And okay, and then you write it down. And then the hope then, Katrina, would be that he might be able to generalize because this, I maybe responded inappropriately to this. Here's a similar situation. And if I responded that way to this one, maybe I should respond similarly to this one.
Yeah. We made jokes about rules and changing computer code. So he's just saying, I can change this code in my operating system to adapt to what you need me to do instead of something else. So I said, okay.
Yeah, you just described him saying that he has a frame of reference.
Yeah.
Which is what we talked about earlier.
Yeah. So thank you.
Alexandria, you had your hand up for a long time.
Yeah. So I have partially moved out. I have been trying to figure out how to get a divorce for 18 months. And so we live in Hawaii, and he has grown kid. He has another batch of kids on the mainland. Their mother died. So he's on the mainland right now, and he just hangs up. He, if there's any serious conversation about anything, he calls me names and hangs up. And then yesterday, so we're trying to.
Now, before you move on, let me just take 2 seconds to address that. When he yells at you and hangs up, because I want you guys to start thinking like I think. That was, in essence, him blowing off toxic built-up energy, anxiety energy. That was him burning off anxiety energy. Go ahead.
There's been a lot of what I can only describe as financial abuse and neglect, both for the first wife regarding the first 3 children and with me and the second 3 children. And so I'm not sure how to address that. It seems like he constantly refers to the house as his house, and He frequently threatens to, cancel the health insurance in the middle of the pandemic. If the food budget that was ordered by the court runs out, he refuses to even buy a loaf of bread. It's like, it's all mine. It's mine, mine, mine. And I don't know how to change my reaction. I can see my sick reaction to the neglect in the house that I'm leaving. I compulsively shopped at thrift shops, and I want to vomit. I want to walk away from this mess. But I'm a contributing factor to this disaster we've created for these kids, because my reaction to the neglect is to amass a barricade. I'm not sure what is the most important thing I can do to change my life and my kids' lives.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, Alexandria, is, and we mentioned this before, not in this group, but it bears repeating, because I think you're running the risk of making the same mistake, and why wouldn't you? You're really in a tough spot, high crisis mode. But 2 points. You need to use your energy judiciously. You're not an endless reservoir of energy. You have a limited, your gas tank is X amount of gallons, and that's it. And so you have to really be careful how you spend your energy. That's point number one, and I cannot overemphasize that. Point number two is you don't want to be wasting energy, valuable energy that you can never get back, on stuff that you cannot control. You've got to save every ounce of gasoline for the stuff that you can control. You don't want to waste a drop on the stuff that you can't. So it would be good, and maybe you're already doing this. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a journal. It could be one piece of paper where you have 3 categories. These are the things I cannot control as much as I want to control them, and as much as it is a thorn in my side right now. I cannot control these things. I don't want to waste any time or energy doing it. Then you're going to have another category. These are things that I definitely have control of. I can do these things. I can make these things happen. And then there's going to be a third category that's kind of iffy. It's like, I might be able to control this thing if the circumstances were slightly different, or timing was slightly different. There's a little gray area here where currently I cannot control it, but if a few things change in the near future, I might be able to control it. So that's the first thing you need to do, is make sure you get on paper so you can know exactly where you're going to spend your energy. One of the things that needs to go into the I can't control it category is I can't control his reactions to our conversations. So just expect that he's going to, since he doesn't have any effective coping strategies, just expect that he's always going to take the low road. So the next time you have a conversation with him, before you even pick up that phone, you should be thinking, I don't have any control what he's going to say. And so if, and more likely when, he does his usual bullshit, instead of me getting all distraught and wasting energy on that, I'm just going to let it go, because I don't have any control over that.
Yeah, because usually I call back.
Oh.
And he doesn't. It's like hitting my head against a wall. And I've always been the one to circle back.
That's an example. This is not a criticism. It's easy for me to do Monday morning quarterbacking here. But when he says, fuck you, and hangs up, and you call back, that's a perfect, not that you did this, but that's a perfect example of you wasting energy on something you can't control.
Yeah.
Energy that you cannot afford to waste.
And so we have a good mediator lined up. I finally got him, we both signed a contract and put in our checks. but then he already told me he's leaving for the whole month of January again. And I said, well, I can't think of a custody schedule because, you know, I've had the boys 24/7. And he says, yeah. So why don't we just stop the mediation? I said, I mean, I'm thinking, no, because I need a business agreement for the money. Now I'm paying my own place. You know, I need to nail down an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And the fastest way in coronavirus to do that, since the courts are closed and there's these, you know, 8-month delays between sessions, the fastest way to do that is through a mediator peacefully.
Yeah.
I just want peace. Let's get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to fight.
He doesn't want to fight either. But what he doesn't want even more than fighting is his anxiety. So if he has to resort to fighting to alleviate his anxiety, that's what he'll do. But what he doesn't know, because I just said a little bit ago, he has poor coping strategies in this as it revolves around this event. What he didn't realize is his anxiety reduction technique actually prolongs his anxiety in the long run. So his technique doesn't even work, but he doesn't know that. So he's always going to opt for an explosion rather than to keep the peace, because he doesn't know how to, emotional regulation is not in his vocabulary, we'll say.
Yeah, because he resorts to shutting me off and just saying, okay, I'm not going to talk to you. I'll only go through lawyers. Well, lawyers are $350 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So every shutdown is $700.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm right here. You know, we can talk about like where the boys are going to be on Thursday right here.
So we can pick this up again next time, Alexandria.
Okay.
I'm not sure that there's.
Don't waste energy. I got your point.
I'm not sure there's anything I can add to this other than don't get bogged. Easy for me to say. Try not to get bogged down on all the little dirty, nasty details that are going on right now. You said, I just want peace. So your goal is to get down there where there's peace. And you want to keep your eyes on that. Yes, there's a lot of super stressful, just nonsense going on. But that's where I'm headed. I'm heading to peace. And I'm going to get there. But it's going to take some while. And I don't want to get bogged down and hyper-focused on all the little stressful bullshit that's going on right now, such that I can't see where I'm wanting to end up at, which is down there where there's peace. So never lose sight of that target. Ellen, you have to leave early? Okay, that's fine. Does anybody else have a question? Barbara?
I do.
Who? Brett?
Yeah.
Whoever has a question, just go ahead and jump in there.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm new to this group, and I'm already so grateful. So thank you, everyone that's already shared.
Mm-hmm.
My big question. Well, one, I'm going through some betrayal from my husband. We're in a big situation right now, and we're kind of on repairing. We spent 2 weeks apart, and now he's with me. But I have an 18-year-old son who is very, very much on the autism spectrum. And I don't know if you have any experience. My son is actually melting down, and I have to fly him to my mother's tomorrow. Him and my husband, like their energy is just, I'm struggling with how to constructively talk to my husband. Like I watch my husband's trying to have him understand why he needs to do his hygiene or whatever it may be at the case. And my son flips out, throws shit, breaks shit. Then my husband's trying to restrain him. And I'm like, listen, you're setting him off like this. You are causing more of this fucking upset. Sorry. I'm sorry to swear, guys. And I'm just curious on, so we took tests a while back. My husband's like, I may have Asperger's, but with this big betrayal we had, he really dove into it. And he's like, I'm pretty sure, he took a bunch of tests. He's like, I'm Asperger's. And I think it's led to a lot of traumatic things in our marriage. And right now with my son, since COVID, it's been really tough and really, really hard. I'm curious on any suggestions on like how to share with my husband, like what you're doing isn't working. Like my son just reacts and then my husband reacts and they're both like and I mean, this morning we had one yesterday, and my son's super upset, my husband's upset. Like, neither of them can get past it, and I'm just struggling with now knowing that we're pretty. My husband has Asperger's. Like, we can check all the boxes. So, do you have any experience with people with Asperger's syndrome, with a neurotypical wife, and then with a son? Our son is pretty, he's kind of low functioning autism.
Yeah, all the time. In fact, that's what I started doing before I started doing couples. That's what I was doing before I started doing couples.
Wow.
It was working with the parents and in regard to the kid who was problematic.
I'm just struggling how to communicate, but it's so much can blow up.
The less communication, the better. I know this is
Okay.
such a sweeping generalization, and it sounds ridiculous. But I can promise you that the communication that you just described, that is the problem. And we can talk more about this if you need to, because I would think it needs some clarification. The less communication, the better. Why? Because communication is a source of anxiety. That's why the meltdowns in your son. So.
So wait, the communication with me?
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
The communication with you, is that about problems?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, well,
I share with my husband, yeah.
I think whenever you start communicating about problems, you're growing your son's anxiety, which is putting him closer to a meltdown, which then gets reinforced because now you guys pick up on his negative energy and you start trading it back and forth, and the thing takes on a life of its own.
No, I meant communicating with my husband.
Does your son hear these conversations?
No, not at all.
Okay. But your husband is on the spectrum too, so it's the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's where I'm not, I'm trying to grasp I had been a mother of someone on the spectrum, and now I'm grasping being away.
At the risk of sounding like running a commercial here, it's hard for me to give you something to run with without him here, and he can't be here. Would there be any chance, and I know this is where I'm taking a tangent here, what's your husband's name?
His name is Eric, and we are doing the couples, and he's doing the men's. He found this group.
Oh, okay. Well, let me work on it.
Yeah, he's all in. He's all in.
Let me just tell you this. Try not to talk to him at all about problems right now. If he's going to be coming to the groups, let me work on him. Why don't you take a rest, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you rest. And I'm not being sarcastic.
Okay.
I'm not being sarcastic.
No, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Save you the grief. Barbara, go ahead. Turn your mic on, honey. You found the video button. There you go.
Okay. I'm dealing with this for 44 years as of Saturday. I am waiting for emotional reciprocity. I am also waiting for apologies and showing forms of remorse. I'm having a really hard time with this. I know he, quote unquote, is trying. He is a man who does he's a taskmaster, but his silence is deadly, and it actually has destroyed some of me emotionally and physically. Like I was born with a model's mouth, and acid destroyed my posterior teeth, and I've gone through a lot of garbage with that, and there is absolutely no compassion. I suffered infertility. I do have one son. He's almost 35, and I wonder about him. Although he's not biological, he has seen so much, and I know when he was younger, he would say, "Mom, you and Dad have a really strange relationship." And now, being in his 30s, he actually said something to me. Since he was a little boy, he saw that his dad didn't make me happy. He said that I was outgoing, warm, creative, empathic. Dad is very internal. I'm concerned about who he is, my son right now, being around what he saw, because I know he goes hot and cold. He's a single guy who does absolutely amazing. He doesn't live at home. And I just need some strategies to cope in this freaking silence, other than what's for dinner. No emotional anything. I mean, you can't say anything with any kind of feelings because there's no reaction. Going out, I don't go out that often during the this horrible pandemic. We were out yesterday. We went to a store, took a little drive, and the intensity of the silence just eats me up alive. Eats me up alive. And it's the stress is outrageous. I mean, I don't know how to deal with it. You would think after 44 years. And also, I do want to mention, it was the father, his brother, and himself. And the father, who I hardly knew, the night before we got married, he said to him, "Women cry, you don't have to give in to them." And my husband lost his mother when he was 9 and she was 34. She got married. They got married. She was 21. He was 32. And her family said, "Get away from him." And she cried basically the day she got married until she passed away of an autoimmune disease at 34. My husband was 9. And I mean, I can go on and on and on. His brother was affected by this. His brother is deceased now. His brother's wife has passed away. And this has nothing to do with Asperger's or autism, but his brother also violated his daughter, who was 16 at the time, who's almost 50. So all this is just eating up at me. And I don't know how to just cope and accept it. I mean, I'm not a teenager. And I'm anxious 24/9, literally.
Well, I don't think, Herbie, you have to necessarily accept it, but I can tell you this: you're trying to make a cat bark, and
Yes.
that cat's never going to bark.
I
And
say that all the time. Yes.
so please don't take this the wrong way. You're a dog. He's a cat. You wanting him to bark, he's never going to bark, so you need to find another dog. And I'm not saying divorce him and find another husband. That's what I'm saying. I am saying you need to find a support system outside of the marriage so you can start having some meaningful conversation and intimacy, because you're not going to get it from him. So don't even ask me the question of, well, how can I get him to give me emotional reciprocity? How can I get him to give me intimacy? How can I get him to meet my emotional needs? And yada, yada, yada. It's not going to, it's never, and I usually never, it's very rare that I say never, but I know so. He's never going to rise to the level of emotional reciprocity that you want. And I'm not saying he's not empathic, and I'm not saying he's not a nice guy. He's a good guy, but he's never going to meow. I'm sorry, he's never going to bark for you. And you need to get your intimacy needs met. I'm not talking about sex now. You need to get your intimacy needs met elsewhere. That's the only way it's going to happen. But I can tell you this, though. Now, that's the bad news. Here's the good news. What he would say if he were here is, he wouldn't necessarily use these words. He would say, "I never feel appreciated. It doesn't matter what I say or do. It's always wrong."
That's right. He does say.
So if you could provide a little, in fact, we had this conversation a little bit ago with, I forget who it was.
Amy and.
If you could offer a little bit of acknowledgement that he's doing something right every once in a while, he would be, so what you need more than anything, Barbara, is to get your intimacy needs met. What he needs more than anything is to get his appreciation needs met. And so if you will kind of give him, he's got to be doing something right some of the time. If you will kind of keep an eye out for that and give him a little bit of praise, That might be a strong word. Just a few words of appreciation about some of the things that he's doing right. Or maybe it's something that he usually does wrong, but this time he didn't do it wrong. That would be another golden opportunity to, give him a couple words of appreciation. Then he's going to be more inclined to think, well, maybe, evidently I do some things right. And so maybe it is worth hanging in there. He wouldn't be able to have the excuse of, I'm always doing things wrong. I never get it right, because you're pointing out to him, Barbara, that sometimes he is doing a few things right.
Okay. I mean, the loneliness is so freaking intense. I'm not kidding. And you would think after 44 years, I would have understood it earlier, but I really didn't.
Yeah, Georgia, I didn't say that he cannot give emotional reciprocity. I said that he's not going to be able to provide the level of emotional reciprocity that Barbara needs or wants.
Okay, sorry, because my question is also, I'm trying to understand, I'm in the process trying to understand if it's possible and how it's possible to train or to learn from his side and from my side to communicate in a way that my needs are met. And so when I hear, not only from you, of course, but that, okay, Asperger cannot do this and that, cannot give emotional reciprocity. The only thing you can do is that.
I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm saying that they are probably not going to be able to do it to the level that you desire. But there's a lot of different, when we say emotional reciprocity, that's a very sweeping term. That could involve a lot of things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do in the men's group is, one of the ways that we try to establish some emotional reciprocity is this business in the communication department, where he is instructed to stop what he's doing, look in your direction, nod while you're talking, pay attention, so it's active listening. Then he's also instructed to paraphrase back what you said, because he's going to check for accuracy, because sometimes he doesn't get it. If he paraphrases back and you say, yes, that's what I mean, now he has listened and understands. And then he's also instructed to validate that that is your truth, that is important to you, and therefore it is important to him. So that is one aspect of emotional reciprocity in the communications department that can be taught. So I'm not saying that they never provide it and they can never going to be able to do it. I'm saying, though, it's limited in some areas.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, he did the group with you. I don't know exactly what it was about, because I didn't ask, he didn't say, but I could see something changing. So, and also we do also couple therapy together with some homework, and so I can see his effort, and I can see our communications is improved a lot.
So on that note, then, Georgia, it's the same thing I was mentioning to Barbara, and I cannot overstate this. And please, all of you ladies, please listen to this.
Okay, thank you.
He wants appreciation more than anything. And and I'm not saying make up a line of bullshit just to appease him. It has to be genuine. It has to be something they actually did. But if you will begin the process of catching him doing things right, and then acknowledging that, I'm going to make up a ridiculous example. Maybe he never washes the dishes after dinner for some reason. Who knows? He happened to wash the dishes. There's a perfect opportunity. Honey, thank you for doing the dishes. I can't tell you how much that means to me.
Yeah. Yes.
Bingo. Now he's thinking, every once in a while I do something right. Maybe I should be doing something in return. Namely, how about a little empathy? How about a little affection? How about a little shoulder rub? Maybe a little sex every once in a while. So you would be amazed if you will actively start hunting down opportunities to show a little bit of appreciation. You will be amazed at how he will turn around.
Thank you. Yeah.
Barbara, every night I write down one thing that I am grateful for that my husband does. Then I find a way to mention it to him when he does. Oh, that's great, Barbara. God bless you.
I have to tell you, Mark.
Yeah.
The night of the election, and I was up until like 5:30 in the morning, I realized I couldn't find 2 necklaces of mine. And he was like half up, and I said, for some reason, I know I changed boxes. I hope I didn't throw this out, and blah. Well, the next morning he got up, and I was half sleeping. He said, what were you looking for? Because this is what he does. And I told him what I was looking for, and he opened up a drawer and he said, these are all bracelets? I said, you know what? I don't even remember anymore. I hardly ever wear jewelry. He opens up the second box and the 2 necklaces were in there, and I thanked him. I thanked him tremendously. He does that. If I should lose the back of an earring, he would be on his hands and knees and go behind every little place to find the back of an earring.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very lovely.
Okay, well, here's a really weird thing to do. Why don't you accidentally on purpose lose a ring or something under the bed? Set him up for success. Honey, I lost that ring. Where'd you have it last? Oh, I thought it was on the
They're
bed.
amazing.
Hint, hint. I thought it was on the bed. Hint, hint. And he comes back later. Hey, I found your ring. It was under the bed. What? Yeah, it was under the bed. Oh, thank you, honey. I can always count on you to find my loose diamond rings all over the damn place. Anyway, that brings up a whole nother topic. If you find that some ladies say this, God, if I'm going to wait for him to do something right to show appreciation, he's never going to get any appreciation. Well, then concoct something, set up something where he has to be successful. You know how they train dolphins at SeaWorld or whatever? They lay the rope at the bottom of the pool. The dumb dolphin he's not too dumb. He has to swim over the rope just to get from one side of the pool to the other. Then they raise the rope up here in the middle of the water. We're not at the top of the water yet. He swims under the rope. He doesn't get a fish. He swims over the rope and he gets a fish. Then they raise it up to water's level. He already knows if I jump over this thing, I get a fish. So now he's already learned that when I go over top, I get a fish. And then they raise that thing 20, 30, 50 feet above the water. He's already got it by then. So fring, jumps out over the rope, gets a fish. Everybody's happy.
Mark, I just want to ask you, what do you do with all the silence? The dead silence. It's ghostly. It really is.
2 things. You find somebody else to talk to, or you talk about his favorite subject.
Actuarial science and football, and I don't know.
That's right. You start learning something about football. Hey, Saul, what'd you think of Minnesota on that game yesterday? Oh, well, I thought they did poorly in the second quarter. The quarterback just went cold. And really?
Well,
Who do you think they're going to win? Who do you think's going to win next Sunday? Well, so if he's not going to talk to you about your stuff, talk to him about his stuff.
Well,
Vicky,
you know what?
Vicky says, "Are we not just pandering to all of their needs?"
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I understand that question. That's kind of an exaggeration. I don't think you're pandering. You are appealing to some of their needs, is how I would word that. But sometimes it does feel, I'm going to validate that. Sometimes it probably does feel like you're pandering to all of their needs. Hey, this is Mark Hutten. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.